Welcome to Bigfoot
and the Bunny.
This is a couple's journey into the mysterious,
the unknown, and the paranormal.
I'm your host, Chris Carr.
And I'm your host, Kristen Johnson.
Together we are Bigfoot and the Bunny.
Welcome to Bigfoot and the Bunny. I'm your host, Chris Carr.
And I'm Kristen Johnson.
Happy Saturday. How are you guys doing out there? We have a great show for you guys. We're going to get right into things pretty quickly. But I did want to say, happy Saturday.
We just did. Happy Saturday.
No, we didn't have a whole lot prepared, but we have an awesome guest. And we can't wait to talk to her and bring her right on. So we're going to get right to things. Let me see here. Oh, look at that. And, I had her bio up and we were just talking together.
Of course.
And of course I scrolled off it. But her name is Elly Molina. And she is paving the way with her research and background in education to teach children and their parents to trust their intuition and develop conscious awareness. She is creating cutting-edge programs that can harness the skills like remote viewing, telepathy, telekinesis, and others that can be applied to everyday life. And this is just an amazing subject, especially where it involves children. I love this. Let's bring her right on. Hello, Elly.
Hi, welcome.
Hi, thank you, Chris. Hi, Kristen. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. My pleasure. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. We already got some people out there saying hello. Hello, Anne-Marie Young.
Hi, Ann.
And I guess let's start with how you got involved in this.
Well, as they say, it's always a personal journey. So it began very early, probably by the time before I was 5 years old. I remember some really incredible dreams. I remember walking, one of our family friends had passed when I was a young child, probably around 5 or 6 years old. And I had a dream that I was walking with her. And then I asked her, if she's dead, why are we walking together and how can I see her? And then whatever the language was that I had at that time as a young child, the message was the dead walk among the living and only few can see us. And that was pretty much the beginning of my experiences. I was able to psychically know things. I had visions. And I really believe from my work with children that we all have these experiences. Some of us just don't remember them as well, or others have had them squashed. And I was very fortunate to have my family, my parents were, well, they indulged me, put it like that. All right. So, I remember I was just sharing this recently. My dad got me a black and white TV set back in the early 60s. And I got to watch The Twilight Zone before going to bed, and Alfred Hitchcock and One Step Beyond. And as far as I was concerned, all of that was real. And there wasn't anything imaginary about that. So I started really very, very early. By the time I was 12, I was doing astrology. My mom gave me Linda Goodman's sun signs, and here, go read this. And I did. And then I was casting charts. Back in the day, we did not have our charts online that you could just put all the information in. And so I would do that all by hand with an ephemeris. And just one thing led to another. And I was always psychic and loved it. And then by the time the 80s came around, I was teaching English middle school. And I started to notice that the kids were interacting telepathically sometimes during these games that we would play. And I said, I got to start doing something with this. So every Friday we had game day. This is where we would play English language games. And yet I would sneak in a little bit of telepathic stuff in the meantime, and self-empowerment and journaling. We would journal because that's what you do in English class. But I would have them do new moon wish lists. And then every time the new moon came around, we'd do the new moon. And this was back in the 80s. So that's pretty much where I got started. And then obviously, I had an entire career in education, and it moved into really going full out with this work by 2005, when The Secret came out and Betsy Chasse did What the Bleep. And basically I'm like, okay, if this can be out there, then this is public information and I can start using this in the classroom, which is what I did.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I love that. Our regular listeners know one of the things we often comment on is that our guests, people that are involved in either like paranormal studies, psychical studies, tended to have some kind of childhood experience. They either grew up in like a haunted house, or they had some event that happened to them that seemed to carry on. And it's almost like, you want to know the answer to those questions. But you're right. Maybe everybody has the experiences we did ourselves, but we didn't squash them. So we persisted and want to know the answer today. That's really our driving force. Is like, how does this work, and what's really going on here,
Right.
and how can we utilize it, that sort of thing. So that's really fascinating that you saw that, and it was like that's more or less like a mediumistic experience where you're communicating with a spirit.
Yeah.
Very.
She wasn't the only one. And that was where it's interesting, because I really don't talk about that too much in my personal life. It's only been since I started doing these podcasts and people asking me that it's coming, all this stuff is coming back, that I had kind of suppressed or not shared with other people. I do remember being in the living room of my home, and this picture fell down, and I looked at my parents and I said, "Oh, Mr. Robertson just died." And then it was like, "Why?" Because the picture fell down. I said, "Yeah, I was about 5." And then Mr. Robertson did die. So like, oh, what are we going to do with this child?
Yeah. Wow. That's a lot to unpack for
Yes,
your
it
parents
is.
at that point. Yeah. So a little bit creepy, but that's so cool. So you end up working with children, and you hear the term Indigo Children a lot. And I think it was more popularized in the 90s. Starseed is another name, or Crystal Children. Does that hold any validity to you, or do you feel that everybody has this ability?
Well, everybody has this ability. And so these are named, this is a belief system. And, I am sure that there are belief systems where there are indigo children, and we read all about this, and there are star seeds, and there's a lot of information available with all of that. However, I work with, let's call it everyday children who are highly telepathic, because we're all telepathic, we're all psychic, we all have these intuitive abilities. They're part of our birthright. It's another sense, and it's like one of our, maybe sometimes I think about it as being the first sense, because before we can speak and do anything, and even touch, we can feel. We have this ability to sense things. That's part of our consciousness as our brains are developing. And so I do believe that this phenomena that is called the sixth sense is really truly our first sense, and then we learn all of the others. So we all have it. We all come into this earth with this.
Wow, I like that.
Yeah, and
That's
I totally
excellent.
believe that as well. I think you're right. I think everybody does have it, and I think a lot of people experience it without really being conscious that they're experiencing it. Like, how many people you get a text or a phone call and they know who's going to be on the other end before they actually look.
Right.
A common experience that people have, and most people say that, that's happened to me. Well, that would be, a form of telepathy or psychic ability.
Absolutely. And the thing that always makes me laugh, Chris, is that we're still surprised by it. Okay. It's like, "Oh, I was just thinking about you." And, "Oh, isn't that weird?" And no, it's not weird at all. It's very normal. And so that is what I love, to bring this into the realm of being normal every day. Somebody once said to me, "Elly, you talk about psychic abilities the way that other people talk about the weather." And that is true. Okay. To me, there's nothing unusual. There's nothing bizarre around. There's nothing woo-woo to this. This is all real. This is as real as the weather.
Would you say that's maybe the first step in assessing those psychic abilities? It's just to kind of take away the stigma that surrounds them?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. First of all, the belief, again, this is a pretty loaded question, because depending on where people come in with the beliefs, I only attract people, parents, adults who come to me now in my private program, in the online program, who are open to this. All right. I'm not going to attract people who think that this is strange or weird. They're not going to be putting their children into these, any kind of psychic online intuitive development program with me. However, People are opening up to this, and it's just really. I kind of came in through it through affirmations, basically, when I started doing this work before I ended up going into the remote viewing and telepathic and telekinesis. I came in with affirmations. So just a little bit of background. When I was teaching public school in New York City, we teach we teach to the test. This is the English language assessment test, and our grades are very important. The students' grades are very important. It affects its politics. It affects a lot of things. And my seventh graders had really high scores, the highest in our district. So it was almost like one of those Stand and Deliver, if you remember that movie, Stand and Deliver. And it was like, what are you doing in the classroom, Molina? What's going on? And I said, well, we're doing affirmations. We started doing affirmations way before the test so that we would start talking. The kids would learn, I now pass this test easily and effortlessly. The answers come to me. Everything that I need to know will instantly be revealed to me. So we work like that because I do believe that all the answers are there in the subconscious and in the collective conscious. So when we take away the fear and the doubt, we have access to the information that we know is there. So that is how I worked to teach, besides the English grammar and the things that they would need to know for the material for the test. And our scores were remarkably high that year. So my principal came and said, well, what's going on in here? What are you doing? And I told her, we're doing this affirmations. We're talking about consciousness. We are looking to raise our conscious awareness. And she said, well, I'm going to allow you to create a program called, it's an enrichment program. You'll get 20 kids in here for the year, 4 quarters. So see 80 kids. And I called it the power to create. And so during that year, during the time that I was teaching the power to create, it went into thought and language, and then it went into remote viewing, and and telepathy, and it really started to expand. And the kids were amazing, and they loved it. And again, a lot of it was thought and language. The connection between what we think and what we speak creates our reality.
That's really interesting. These were 7th graders.
Yes.
Oh, that's great. Now, see, when I was in 7th grade, I also was interested in this stuff in 6th and 7th grade middle school, and was very into astral projection. And I was better at it then, at that age, than I am now.
Yeah.
Now I have a heck of a time doing it, and it's rare. And it's usually a thing where I wake up in a dream and it becomes a lucid dream that I'm controlling. But even those are rare. Well, then I was like playing hypnosis cassettes to put myself in that state, and it just seemed to be easier. And I don't know if it was my belief system that changed somehow, even though I'm fully open to things, or just part of the aging process.
I think it might be just part of the aging process,
Yeah.
being young.
Yeah.
And your brain is still developing.
Right. Well, we do know from research that until puberty, depending on how old you were when you went through puberty, pre-puberty, children are in the alpha state. And when you're in the alpha state, you can do all of these amazing things because the veil is lifted. It's a different brainwave frequency. And then puberty happens, and we all go into the beta brain state, which is a much faster brainwave state, which is what we're in right now. And in order for us to reach alpha when we're awake, we have to meditate or go into the zone or, space.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. When puberty hit, my interest changed a bit. So it would be a while before I'd revisit the idea of psychic abilities and different things. So that's fascinating. But I always wondered why it was much easier then, given that I'm open to it now. In fact, we were trying things like the gateway program, HemiSync, and different things, to try to get better at those things.
I really like that.
I want to look into your program more because it sounds so interesting. And I love that you work with kids. Now, for our audience, you work with the children and their parents together.
Yeah, it has to be, honestly.
Yeah, I think so, just to spell it. idea that you're just
I mean,
talking.
and unfortunately, there may be parents that think, oh, let me just plop my kid in front of this screen and they'll go do this themselves. But that's not where the fun is. The fun is really doing it together, in my opinion. And the fun is having the conversations about it also. Because if somebody learns something and the parents don't have that ability, or there's a disconnect, well, then it's going to be lost. Children thrive in an environment where the parents share the same interests, where they can talk about this, where there is engagement and aliveness and stimulation.
Sure. Yeah. Be better off. I'd like to do that with my son. I'd love to, take him,
Sure.
sit him down and, and just
bring him in, because he
bring him
still
into
has
it.
a belief system where my son's more like turned off by these things, and he's more I guess you would call it a left brain thinker, right?
Mhm.
And everything's
That's
got to be
good.
logical, and then if it's not logical, then
Mhm.
that's not real, even though he is an experienced phenomena from growing up with me.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing, so for what I do, Chris, is also I bring it into the science, because as far as I'm a very strong analytical thinker also, believe it or not, even though, you're psychic and all of this and you're intuitive, only I'm very analytical at the same time. And so therefore, I approach this is all very scientific based to me. This is all part of quantum physics. And the more that we don't really know much about, we know a certain amount about quantum physics, but there's so much that we do not know. So this to me is all very scientific, as opposed to being anything other than scientific in nature, and it all makes sense. The more that we understand the universe and we have access to information that how the universe works, the more that we'll see that whatever it is that we're doing that we call telepathy and psychic ability and all of this all just makes total sense.
It
Right.
does.
It does. And that's a topic we like, quantum physics, things happening in the quantum level. We're still discovering what's there. We're still discovering new particles. There's been all sorts of experiments about, like, where is the electron and what is it doing? It behaves differently, or these particles may act differently, whether they're viewed or not, which
Exactly.
makes me think manifestation, or a person's will can have an influence on a quantum level that maybe slowly expands into a larger consciousness that we live in.
Yes.
So where do you start with people and teaching them beyond maybe if they already are into their idea of psychic ability? So we're going to eliminate the belief factor. How do you bring them into that?
So for me, so thanks for asking that, Chris. So for me, this work is more about consciousness than it is about the phenomena. However, I also like to look at it as the phenomena can lead us to the consciousness, and then it can take us to other levels of consciousness and awareness. So what I mean by that is, if let's say you're a child, okay, and you're working with me, or you're working with one of my programs, and you look at this deck of cards, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, the kids are in the alpha state, all right, and they're open, and they learn that they can see, and it takes them a few minutes. But what happens is maybe they'll know that, this is the 2. Oh my God, okay, this was no joke, this is serious. This is the 2. That was not planned. I did not.
Wow.
Wow, there you go.
There you go.
Do not ask me to reproduce this, because my energy level has just shifted and my ego just kicked in and my brain is going, okay, you just did that right now live. All right. Because normally this is something that I do alone, or when I'm doing a psychic reading, but not here. So yes. Okay. Anyway.
That's awesome.
Let me just point out, just because some people will listen to this as a podcast and not actually see the visual, you just pulled the card out of the deck that you mentioned.
Yes.
Just randomly, you're holding a deck of cards.
Yeah. Right. And that's what I teach the kids to do. And what happens is, you saw what happened to my body. So anybody just listening right now, what happens to the body is that we get an electric shock. I mean, we just get like, whoa, right? All this adrenaline just flows through us. It becomes a positive experience. It becomes an empowering experience. So now that the children have these experiences through the program, being able to see without their eyes over time, distance, and space, pulling a card and getting the answer correct like that multiple times, there's such a feeling of empowerment, Chris, that runs through the body that I can then start to take children to the level of, well, look, if you can do this, then why would you be afraid to speak up in the classroom? Why would you be afraid to share what's really on your mind? Why would you be afraid to go apply for a job that you know you're qualified for? I'm talking about the older kids now. So this is a source of empowerment. And aside from that, it is also the entry level into raising consciousness. Because in order to do this work, a person or a child, that I believe, needs to develop focus. And with focus, they develop attention. They learn how, and I teach this, so it's not random. Oh, let's just see across time, distance, and space. Like I said, for me, it is really important that we learn how to focus. We learn how to concentrate. We learn how to direct our awareness so that we are not taken into everybody else's agenda, but that we keep our attention focused on what it is that we want to have. So children who work with me learn to become the masters of their own destiny because they learn how to use their own focused conscious awareness. And I start teaching consciousness at focus at age 3. And what we do there, you could say, well, how's that possible? I teach children to start tucking away their body so that they're not using their body all the time. And when they do move their body, they understand they're moving their body. Why are they moving their body? Can you control moving your body? And then a 3.5-year-old child can start to control moving their body. Adults can't even do this. So the more that a child has this awareness that I can control my body, I am the master of controlling my itches and I want to move and all of that, I can control that. That starts to lead to emotional intelligence and consciousness and high levels of awareness.
Oh, that's fantastic. And my parents would have loved you because I was running around like a banshee and just like,
going through tables and stuff, glass tables.
Yeah. No, I got scars to this day from things I did when I was a child. But that brings up another point. I was actually diagnosed with ADHD for a time when I was a child, and I don't know, I apparently outgrew it, but does that play a role? And I've heard that associated with like the Indigo Children. And
well, I believe so. And I have a different opinion about this. And again, I am not a medical doctor, so I'm not going to go there. But I do believe that the ADHD syndrome is a direct result of children not knowing how to control their bodies. Because first of all, parents just tell their kids, parents mean well, teachers mean well. And they're just like, sit down, control yourself, behave. But does anybody teach us how to control ourselves and behave? Are we taught how to focus? Are we taught how to concentrate? Only if you're in some kind of meditative program, like maybe transcendental meditation or yoga, where you learn to do these things. But other than that, you're just told to do this. Now, again, children are going through the need to physically move their bodies. So being in an academic classroom for 8 hours is not sitting in a chair, listening to somebody talk is not normal. It's absolutely not normal. So the body becomes restless. The body wants to jump. The body wants to move. This is what in natural evolution is of our physical development, and we are constraining it. And then, oh, they're not listening. Let's just medicate them and give them diagnosis. I'm not talking about people who have like really seriously, let's go do some testing and there are things that are genetically off. I am just talking about all of the cases in public school that have just been diagnosed ADHD because the kid won't sit still or won't listen. They don't behave because they don't want to, and they just don't want to. It's not normal. It's not natural.
Right.
Yeah, that would have been like more my case. I was never given like any kind of prescription. They changed my diet a bit. It was like sugar. I guess sugar was like
that'll do it too.
I just running around. I just remember being full of adrenaline a lot. It's a vague memory, but That is
Can't focus. Yeah.
that was it. Now I had trouble focusing for that reason, and sitting still in class. I was, first grade. Constantly
If they had run out in the fields or something all day long with a ball and play, nobody would have diagnosed you as ADHD for
That's
sure.
basically what we did when we were kids.
Yeah,
We were only children, so we just had,
a lot of time on our
ourselves and
hands.
a lot of time. We would just run.
Yeah, for sure. So I love that. So what's approach
Yeah.
you take? Do you tell children to do breathing exercises and that kind of thing? How do you get them into
That's where I start. I always start. Oh, just FY, this is a perfect time for me to just let listeners know. I have a free 16-page guide called What If. It's 16 pages of bringing magic to every day for your children. And it is 6 ways to tap into your inner magic for their kids. So they can be doing some of these exercises that I'm going to be talking about right now. They can do that with their children, and it's free on my website. They can just head over to my website. I see you've got it there, and go to the Psi-Kids tab and download What If. And then it's 6 ways to help your child tap their inner magic. And so one of the first ways is, I call it the friendly focus. It's a 15-second challenge where children will just tuck away our bodies. And I give directions as to what that looks like to tuck away your body. All right. And you sit still, and then the exercises go. That's where I would begin with anybody. Before you can do this, you got to learn how to control your body. And then you have to also learn to control your awareness and focus. And I teach that. I teach the focus and the awareness. So it's not like me just saying, okay, let's focus now on this. All right. No, I teach it.
Right. And it's not just for children, it's for adults as well.
Oh, it's not. It's for adults. So so here's the thing. I did call it children, and but the same material is what I use when I'm teaching adult psychic development programs. It's the same thing. I just put pictures of children around it, and because I want children to keep their magic. And I'm just going to go off on a little tangent. People ask me, really, why do I do this? And one of the reasons that I've come to discover is that looking at young children, initially, when you are with children, you're going to see there's that sparkle in their eyes, and you see this around. It's always connected to magic. Like they're so young, when they're really young, before they get to school, their eyes sparkle. And, like you can see it at holiday time, or you could see it when they're getting gifts, or when something exciting happens, the eyes light up. And then, unfortunately, they get to school and they're with their peers, and life kicks in and their eyes become dull. And I look at how dull their eyes are, and it breaks my heart. And that was one of the reasons why every day in school, what I wanted to do was to bring that light back into their eyes, so that no matter what exercises we were doing, whether it was English language or writing, it didn't matter. It was all about bringing that light back into their eyes, even if it was just for a few moments.
I love that. And I think learning is really part of life that should never go away. Like, I don't think people should ever stop learning, and people use that phrase a lot, but I think it's true. We're constantly reading books and watching videos that are informational and trying to enhance and keep the brain going and learn new things. And it makes life a lot more pleasurable.
It does.
And keeps a little bit of magic in it.
Well, it's not the magic. My grandson is 3 years old, and when I go and play with him and I visit him, I always I call it my magic water. And it's a bottle of water, and it's got crystals in there. And I have taught him that when we hold the water and we say a prayer and we say words, I don't call it a prayer yet, but we say words over the water, that we can make the water magic and really good for us. And he sees my bottle, and I always bring my magic water, and he asks me, magic water. So yes, and his eyes shine.
Oh, that's so.
Oh, that's great.
That's really cool.
We had a question in the audience. I think you just more or less answered it. Greg Cossett asked if you had your own children, but you have grandchildren, so you definitely have your own children as well.
So I'm going to share a little story. I have three sons. And one of my sons went to, I call it the magic school. When we moved to Washington State, I taught at a school where telekinesis, remote viewing, blindfolded archery, all of these things, neuroscience, this was the norm. This was part of the curriculum.
Oh,
And
wow.
that is why I went there. I left New York City. I took my kid, my one son, my older son, my other children were older. They were in their 20s at that time. And so I took my son and I took my mother and we went to Washington State and I taught there, and my son went to that school where he learned all of the things that I am talking about right now. And so
Wow.
how does he use this? He and his friends, they use this in their professions. So, they use their focus, they use their manifesting abilities. Now, of course, people can say, oh, you can manifest without having any of these skills and tools. That's true. However, when you can consciously manifest and you know why you're manifesting and you know what you're doing with your manifesting, this is not random. And so, you can break time barriers, you can get through, we've had bilocation experiences, the more that one lives in this realm, the more the experiences expand. And so we have these conversations, these are our conversations. Like I said, we talk about this the way other people talk about the weather.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I think
That's
it's fascinating.
Yes.
And these things, remote viewing, telepathy, telekinesis, they're all related skills.
Yes. So just for people, anybody who's listening, remote viewing, of course, is being able to see over time, distance, and space without the use of our eyesight. And so that is a practice, and one can train this. And there are different schools of remote viewing. We know that also. In my work, I do not use a particular form of remote viewing. There's controlled remote viewing, associative remote viewing. There are a few others. Okay. And this is a trained skill people can learn. Adults can go take courses and programs in learning how to remote view. And when I do it with the children, it's a different form of remote viewing. We do use blinders, those mind folds, so that nothing can be seen. And then it's pretty much more along the lines of telepathy, yet there is some instruction as to what it is that they're doing. And then they are able to see over time, distance, and space. And we also work with remote healing. And again, remote seeing, remote healing. And then we also go into the space of prediction and not even, what's the word? Premonitions and unknowing what is coming. I guess it's that psychic phenomena of knowing what is coming.
Like a clairvoyance kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, precognition.
Precognition.
Do you use any kind of picture drawing like people often do?
The kids do, yeah, absolutely. That's part of the remote viewing. And so the idea is also, so in that respect, I follow the protocol of remote viewing, where we do not label the objects unless somebody, it's called, for those people who are familiar with remote viewing or not, it's called the AOL analytical overlay.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
So for example, if you see something round and orange and it's got stripes, you may say to yourself, oh, that's definitely a basketball. And then you go, but it could be a pumpkin for all we know, depending on the stripes, or it could be something that we don't even know because it's not in our field. Okay. How do we don't know everything in the world. So it could be some sort of an appliance that may work in a gadget. So the idea is that I teach the kids, do not label, just draw it, write down what you see. And if a kid can't draw or write, then they can tell the adult, and the adult will then write down, as to the best of their ability, what it is that the child sees. Now, sometimes the kids really do get it just like that. They absolutely see the object or whatever it is that we're doing. And that's totally legit also,
So I think the way that kind of works is your brain is always trying to make sense of whatever psychic data that it's getting. Like I know Ingo Swann used to write about this. Information would come in, and the brain immediately tries to filter it. Comes in from the subconscious or maybe the unconscious, and the pure information is there. And then you spend the time trying to decipher or really turn the rest of your brain off to let it through, and then just draw it. And like the idea of drawing picture drawings and psychic abilities, I know that goes back way back to 1882, I believe. I wrote it down just to make sure I said it right. The Society for Psychical Research in London. George Albert Smith, and he had a partner, and they began with the drawings, and that would continue on through like the spiritualist movement, where people would draw these things and sometimes get them. Ingo being a master of these things,
Yes.
starting in like 1971. But I loved how he broke that down, and I've experienced that myself. Like, it's just like my brain wants to. It's like the same thing as pareidolia they talk about in the paranormal investigating and research field. Your brain tries to make a face out of a cloud, and it wants to make sense out of whatever data is coming through.
Right.
So you might get part of it, and then you start to color it, like you would say, the stripes on the pumpkin, and
I call
sort
it
of thing.
the dreaded AOLing.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Those analytical overlays. Like, it's a hard thing to get past.
It is.
Absolutely.
What do you recommend to people to try to get past those?
Here's what I say, because this comes up in my work all the time. I work also as a consultant and a psychic. I do readings. And so when I'm doing a reading and I see something, I do my best to just describe it in very, let's call it vague terms, meaning that I'm not going to say, oh, I see a female, or it looks like a female. There's an entity, it looks female. I'm not going to say it's a woman. I say it looks female to me where I'm at. And then the client may go, oh, I think I know who that is. And then I'll say, stop, okay? We don't want to be greater than, I use the word God. We don't want to be greater than God. We want to leave this open. I do not know who this person is. Please do not look to limit it to the knowledge that you already have to make it fit. Okay. It's that same thing, that analytical overlay. Like, oh, I see a woman coming into your home next week and she's going to bring news. Oh, that's my Aunt Mary. Well, it might be, but it might not be. All right. Because that's why we're doing a reading, and it may not be Aunt Mary. So let's just leave it to the future to see who is coming in.
Fantastic. Now, where does the line go from that? I understand telepathy and remote viewing being connected kind of in that same subconscious filter way to telekinesis, which I could believe is the movement of objects, right?
Right. All right. So my experience with telekinesis is, first of all, you got to believe this. All right. If you do not believe this, belief is so strong. There's got to be belief. There has to be an expectancy that this is possible. Otherwise, there's not that strong chance that it's going to work. And I've only seen it a few times. So I've seen it a total of 3, and we're not talking about on the internet. I'm talking about,
in real life.
In real life. So I've seen it 3 times with 3 children, and it was Domino, and that was where the book was. Annabelle and the Domino was based loosely on the experiences. It's a fictionalized version of what went on. But you see, the kids believed that they could move these dominoes. They believed that the dominoes would fall down through the power of their mind. So they were able to take, let's say, I'm going to pretend this is a domino, take one domino, put it on the table, not sit anywhere close enough to make the table shake, nowhere, no body contact. And these kids, here's the thing, Chris, these kids could sit 20 to 25 minutes and not move. Now, you see, that's practice, that's training, that's commitment, that's persistence. Those are a lot of different qualities. There's no impatience, and that's a whole other skill set. And those were the children that were then able to move those dominoes, have them fall down, just like boom. Then there was a woman, and there was, I don't remember exactly. She worked through the Institute of Noetic Sciences, and she would do spirals. And so one of my friends took her program and came home with this glass and put the spiral in there. And then we would practice moving the spirals like that. That worked. And then and then I did a couple of workshops, but only one person was able to move that spiral. Now, I do know that it takes much longer to move it. One has to, again, have that time to really get it going. Now, whether it's the energy from our hands, does it really matter? It's all the same. It's telekinesis. And then spoon bending. All right. I remember when I learned how to bend a spoon, and then during COVID, all I was doing was spoon and fork bending, to the point where it became Like, how many more spoons and forks are you going to bend, Mom? All right. Like, what's the
They're hard to fit in the jar if you bend enough of them.
No, once that's it. They're done. So I put them in a basket so that I have them as mementos. Oh, I can do this. I did this. Right. Okay.
Right. And I'm sure this is surprising to a lot of people that people still practice bending spoons and stuff. It was popularized by Uri Geller back in like the 1970s, but people still do it today, and it's a thing. So when you're doing that, can you walk us through a little bit of like what it is like to bend a spoon? Like, what are you thinking of, and how are you doing that?
So the way that I learned it was to pretty much go into. The first time it happened, it was like a fluke. I was very frightened of spoon bending, and I'll tell you why. Because my brain kept telling me, "Well, you can do remote viewing, and you can do psychic work, and you walked over a bed of hot coals at Tony Robbins, and you can do blindfolded archery. What if you cannot bend a spoon?" I had doubt, so I did not practice bending a spoon for a long, long time. And then, like I said, it was pre-COVID. I was sitting on my couch. There was somebody, it was Sean McNamara, if you're familiar with Sean from Mind. I don't remember his website now, but Sean does this work also, Sean McNamara.
Yeah,
Sean had done a video where he was with a group of people, and they were doing collective spoon bending. And so he had posted the video on YouTube, and I was on my couch, and I went into the kitchen, and I said, okay, let me find a spoon. Who wants to come? I'm talking to the spoons. Which one of you wants to come? And then one spoon said, I do. So I pulled it out, went and sat on the couch. And while I was sitting on the couch, Sean told us, hold the spoon in such a way, right, where the round part meets the whatever that thing is called, the stem, whatever that thing's called, the spoon.
Sure. Yep, the long piece.
Hold it there. And then he started to guide us through meditation. And I fell asleep. I started to fall asleep. And so when Sean said, bend, I went like that. And the spoon bent. I was wide awake. I was jumping up and down on the couch.
Wow.
And from that point on, then I started consciously, bending the spoon, like talking to the spoon, getting into alpha, really talking to it, believe it or not, like you're going to bend, you're going to bend, you're going to bend. And then it would just bend. Then my clients and I were doing this. We got really good at it. We started twisting these things around. Okay.
Wow. We have one on hand so we can show people.
I have one, but I'd have to get up.
We were just wondering.
It's okay.
Yep.
I've seen the results of like extreme spoon bending, and it's crazy. They bend in ways that you couldn't physically do it. If you sat wrenched it with you couldn't get those shapes. It would be unnatural. The metal would break.
So you know what I will do, if anybody's interested, when we're done, I'll post some spoons on my Facebook page. All right. So just go put me in Elly Molina and I'll tag you or something, and I'll post some spoons.
Oh,
we'll
awesome.
share that.
Thank you. Just real quick. So you went to one of Tony Robbins' seminars?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been to a few. Mm-hmm.
That's great.
What was it like walking on the hot coals?
So my son and I went, and it was interesting because I do enjoy this with going to these events with him. And I was standing there. There were a lot of people standing there, and Tony had prepped us, the crowd. He had prepped us for, I'm going to say, I give this guy a lot of credit. I'm going to say at least 2.5 to 3 hours before we got to the coals that we were able to get into a state change. Remember, most of the people are coming from none of this experience that my son and I had. So we were prepped, and then we were standing online, and there's lines, and their coals are there. And it is like, I can do this. And so that was it. He would have us look up, not down, and then say, cool moss, MOSS, cool moss. And so as we walked across the bed of coals, it was like, cool moss, till we got to the other side. Nothing, no blisters, no scorching, no anything.
No burning, no nothing.
So amazing.
It really is.
It is. I've seen it in videos. And
yes.
I think a lot of videos Tony is great. I've read some of his books in the past. Excuse me. And he's talking about mind over matter. in such a way you can just walk across these coals, and
Mhm.
I
it
want to
is similar
try
to
it.
to psychokinesis in a way where you're telling yourself, I can move that object and or bend that spoon, that thing.
Yeah.
It's almost like, there you go. The mind is more powerful
That
than we
is
think.
absolutely amazing, especially how much it didn't affect your feet.
Right. And I'm sure that people who, the people that do get hurt, they come out of the state. Once you come out of that state and you say to yourself, "Oh my God, I'm walking on,"
Exactly, and you're going. That's it.
that's it. You're going to burn. You're going to get
Yeah.
burned.
Then all the Newtonian physics applies, and your feet burn, and
Yeah.
materialistic science type things start to take over.
Right.
So it's really like a mental state that puts you almost into a
Mhm.
different set of
Yes, it puts you
for
into
lack
that.
of a better word.
It puts. I don't want to use it's not hypnotic. It's really putting yourself into another state, a trance
Mhm.
state. Mhm.
And
Right.
that prep of 3 hours, because I've, like I said,
They don't
we've
usually
seen
show that
videos.
part, right?
Well, I've seen it
videos.
where he preps for 3 hours,
Yeah.
and then you go and do it, and it's amazing. I really want to do that so bad.
Yeah, it's fabulous, and it's a great feeling. Also, it's like one of those moments, like getting the card right there, on the spot. Or again, when we used to teach blindfolded archery, I don't really have, we don't look at the target. We don't look this way. The target is here. Let's say that the bullseye, the actual physical target would be in front of us, but we would face in this direction with blinders on. And then we would have the kids do this also. We blinders, we face in the opposite direction, put our arms here, and then shoot. And then we hit the target.
Oh,
it's fantastic.
amazing.
Because we're working with the third eye. We're working with a different consciousness. It's for people who haven't had this experience, it may sound all very unbelievable. That is why, but it doesn't, again, it doesn't matter to me if it sounds unbelievable, because I know that it's real. I've done it myself, and it's been part of my life. And so I wish everybody could have this experience of being able to see how powerful we are and what our abilities are like. And that's why I love working with the kids to start so young, so they don't have to unlearn all of these beliefs later.
Exactly. And there's a lot of challenge in that.
Mhm, mhm.
We're both, psychics in training at all times, it seems. We don't
Yes.
call ourselves that, but it works for like our paranormal research and that kind of thing. And I think it's very helpful. And you could remote view, a supposed haunted location, for example, and maybe have an idea what might be going on there, or the cause of
Right.
Absolutely.
whatever phenomena people are seeing.
And we can also, we use this, we can use this for cloud bursting, okay, depending on the level of the clouds. Okay. But you've heard of cloud bursting, right? Where the clouds are all up there and it's going to rain. And so just a really cute story. This past summer, last year, in July, I was attending a wedding. And it was an outdoor wedding, and all of a sudden there was a thunderstorm, and the clouds started rolling in. So I called together, and it looked like we were gonna have to go somewhere else for this wedding. It was all outdoors. So I pulled together 4 people, and I said, "We're gonna do some cloud bursting, and this is what we're gonna do." And I walked them through the idea of staring up at the sky and then manipulating the clouds to part the clouds. And we worked on this for a good 45 minutes. And then by the time the wedding came at 5 o'clock, the sun was shining. So I don't think it was random, I don't think so.
No, it's very, very useful.
It is. I know shamans do that.
Mhm.
Yes, that very much with the weather, and people have also been able to produce UFOs.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I know you were on Jeffrey Mishlev's New Thinking Aloud recently. We're big fans of Jeffrey and his show. He wrote a book called PK Man, and it was about Ted Owens, who was able to manifest UFOs. And it's just fascinating. It sounds so outside. Like, how could that possibly be?
Yeah.
But there's so much data that pointed to him actually doing this, other people seeing them, newspapers reporting it.
Yeah.
Like, we are just capable of far more than I think the average person realizes.
There's a couple of more people that do that now till today. They still do it.
That's right. That's right. They'll go out in the desert and
Just
conjure the
manifest.
manifest UFOs, it would seem.
Yeah. Mhm.
UAP, if you want to be in the new terms. Right. I still call them UFOs.
Yeah, we're old school
UAP
too.
phenomena.
Great.
I call them UFOs also.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
That's cool too.
Greg Cost had a he wanted to know if the school was near Bellevue, the one in Washington State.
It's not there any longer. And the school lost its funding, and I left school closed in 2011. We lost our funding, and so and I'm in New York now, so I left and moved on and went private, created my own programs, and did my own thing. So I don't know if there's a school in Bellevue.
Laura Refit asked, what about the light entities?
What I'm not sure what that's in reference to. What are light entities, like specifically?
All right, you let us know, Laura, and we'll try to answer your question.
And there was someone else asked if I forgot where it was. I don't know if it was Laura or not, that asked if you do readings like online now, live readings. You do?
No, you do?
No. I go into
them through your site.
Oh yeah, through my site. I go into the dark. So I don't sit here and look at you and say, oh, boom, 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 yada, yada, like Madame Cleo kind of thing. What I do is I go into what I call the dark. Okay, this is where I go into the seeing, because I need things to be dark in order for me to see. Does that make sense?
It does, because everybody's unique. Everybody is different.
Mm-hmm.
So
sure does. I just brought up your website just so people know they can reach you at.
Oh, nice. Thank you. So the Psi-Kids element over there, that little Psi-Kids part, that's where people can go to download the 16-page guide. That's free. It's called What If? 6 Ways to Help Your Child Tap Their Inner Magic. Oh, there you go. Look at that. Thank you. Wow. Yeah, thank you.
I like it. We were checking out your website prior to the show, and it's a very cool website. So I do recommend that people go out there and look you up. And
thank you.
They also get a reading through there. So
yes, they can. I do. I will. So my clients also, I do work with high profile people. And one of the reasons why this is what I believe. I believe people, high profile people come to me because I have such a low profile, and there's real high sense of anonymity. So, and I've been working with people in the industry, Hollywood, public, public figure for many, many years now. And it's just a whole other realm, It's like.
Can we talk a little bit more about that universal consciousness in the sense that we're all connected?
Yeah. So I don't think this is my belief or anything like that. This is what we are all tapped into, a higher consciousness. We have access to everything. There is no time, there's no distance, there's no space, there's multiple realities, there are multiple dimensions. We can access anything and everything. We just need to learn how, and we need to learn how to listen to it. So we're all tapped into everything at once.
And this is similar to like an Akashic records that people call it. And, a kind of a collective unconscious.
Yeah.
Do you think the collective unconscious can take on a form of its own and create phenomena? Or
it could. I mean, there's all different. So if we look at it like great book written, it's called Transurfing. I forget the author's name. If we look at it in terms of transurfing, there are these tracks. I'm going to use the word he uses. There are these tracks that are going and all the time. And these frequencies, and basically we tap into a frequency. So when we're on this frequency, then that is what we have. That's the reality that we're in. That's the dimension that we're in. And we can change tracks. We can change frequencies, but we need an awareness to be changing the frequency. Otherwise, we become, I don't want to use the word victims of the frequency that we are engaged in, but that's really, we are unconscious participants in somebody else's frequency, unless we're consciously aware that we are, again, this is part of the reason why I do this work with consciousness, with kids and adults. We want to be conscious of what frequency we are in, where we're vibrating, whose track we're on, whose influence we are connecting to. Yes. And this doesn't mean like spooky or scary. It's
Mhm.
just an awareness. We don't want to be trapped in a certain mass consciousness that is in hysteria or running around fear-based. Okay, we want to be able to maintain our distance from that, in my opinion. I do, at least, so that I'm not functioning at that vibratory level of hysteria or the things that are affecting us in ways that are not healthy for us physically, psychically, mentally, spiritually.
I think that's great, and it reminds me a little bit of that kind of like attracts like.
Mm-hmm,
You know, if you put
absolutely.
yourself in a negative mindset, you're going to attract negative even entities and other things and frequencies and vibrations
Because you
into
put it
your
out,
life.
right? You put it out.
Absolutely, because that's the track you're on. If you think of it as let's say you think of it as a highway, all right, you're on a highway. And if you're on a highway and all the cars on your highway are going in the same direction, oh, we're going to get sick. Oh, we're going to get sick. We're going to get sick. Everybody's going to get sick, going to get sick. Well, guess what's going to happen?
Right.
It's the mirror effect. So you're going to get sick. That's where your highway's headed. So what we focus on, remember the reticular activating system, what we focus on is what we see, what we have. Those are our experiences. So when we start changing our tracks and we start focusing more on the things that we want to have in our lives, as opposed to the things that we don't want to have, life becomes very different. So that is where we get to really create, but we cannot create unless we're conscious of what we're creating.
Right. So you need to do sort of a conscious manifestation in a way to kind of bring those things in. So you have to put a level of effort into it.
Oh, absolutely. That's
I
why,
think
that's why
a lot of us are like buoys out in the sea and they're kind of just floating along, and whatever happens, and that's what their life is. They don't feel like they have control of it.
Right. Yeah, we have to be very mindful of our thoughts, what we're thinking, what we're saying to ourselves, the language that we're using. This is all part of our conscious awareness.
So Laura Ruffett did comment about the light entities. Let me bring that up. I can't read it all. There are little figures. They're light. I see them every night. My grandson, also like me, he said, "Mom, they come from the sky. I have a slot of pictures, but stop posting as people steal our pictures." So she was talking about little figures of light that she sees.
Are they orbs? I mean, what kind of little...
I'm not sure what he's saying because I'm not talking to him. But if these could be orbs, they could be little light figures. There's so much that we don't know, and children do have access to seeing this. All right, just like some people see shadow figures, and then there are these light beings and light entities that are there, and that it takes a certain level of consciousness. And again, the veil is much thinner if he's a small child, so it's easier for them to see. It's easy to see orbs when you don't have this veil over your eyes.
She said no, they're human form.
Okay, maybe they're like angels or something.
Mm-hmm.
Could be. People see angels. They see like these kind of greater forms of consciousness, as well as the negative ones, and that goes back to like attracts like, and where your consciousness state is that you were just explaining to us. I think is fascinating. So what are some steps people can take to get into a better consciousness? Do you recommend things like meditation? I mean, I want them to get the real deal from you and the whole package, but where would they start?
Well, one of the places that I start, and this is what, again, I'm going to go back to my what if guide, the 6 ways to tap into your child's inner magic. First place to start is to learn to sit still, tap away, tuck the body away, learn how to control the body. That's number 1. And then through meditation, I like to use candle focus. Now, obviously, if you're with a child, you may want to use a screen or an image of a candle, but if you are with a kid and you're supervising the child, you may want to use a real candle because they're tucking away their bodies, so they're not going to be grabbing and touching the candle. And again, as the adult, you want to maintain and be careful that it's a safe environment. So when we start to candle focus, the longer that we can stare at the candle, we start to go into this trance-like state. The more things that we can see, the deeper the dimension goes, the longer a person can stay in focused awareness like that. And I really love using candles for this. The deeper you can go into consciousness, and you can actually astro travel, but you need to be in there for a while. You can get to other realms. It's phenomenal.
Wow, it does sound phenomenal, and
it does, and it's
try
fascinating. Like, when we talk about that, again, going back to the quantum and how all these things kind of grow, and you look at a solar system, but it looks a lot like our little models of atoms, right?
It does.
There are all these sort of like levels of consciousness that just seem to expand almost in a fractal way. That may explain a lot, that we are only given the ability through our senses, or let's say our standard 5 senses and not our 6th sense, the ability to see.
Right. And I mean, just like when we break apart the solar system and we start looking at all of the planets and the configurations up there, it's the same as what's going on in our body between our, with our neurons and our dendrites. It's the same thing.
That's right. And if you keep breaking down what the body is, it being a collection of atoms, and it grows. The atoms make the molecules, makes the next piece, or it might be some, an organ, or your skin, or something like that.
Just pure energy. We're just pure energy.
Pure light energy, perhaps. Yeah, that is fascinating. I know I like some meditations that involve that, using a light, and it's a common thing, and bathing yourself in that light and being like a light being yourself.
And also using music, of course, right? Really good trance music, really music that binaural beats, anything that will get you into the hertz, into that deeper alpha and deeper state is wonderful. That's what I love about the Monroe Institute. I've never been there, but from what I've learned and heard from people who have been, this is they've got great training.
Yeah, supposedly. I would love to go myself. We've done some of their, HemiSync products. We're not sponsored by them in any way. I just love their products. They're good products. It can be things that are just music that you're listening to, and they're in that HemiSync mode, and it can just kind of put you into a good, like an alpha state.
Exactly.
Binaural beats, same kind of thing.
I feel great after I listen to them.
Yeah.
I feel wonderful. I feel like I'm more I'm not psychic in any way. I say I'm not, but I feel more aware.
It does open up your heart. Actually, it does. Okay. So and again, this is why the word psychic is so bad in some ways, okay, because it has such connotation. But basically what happens is when you are in that deep state, you're opening up you're allowing yourself to have access to these other realms. And so what you are seeing and what you are witnessing is real. And that is that psychic realm. And you are psychic, just because you're not doing readings and people are paying for you. I mean, you're accessing that. You can you're in that consciousness. You can communicate with people hundreds of miles away.
Yeah. Right. People even have shared dreams, which I
absolutely. Oh my God. I could tell you a lot about that.
I'm interested in, because I haven't had this experience where
many years ago, I worked with Dr. Henry Reed. He's from the Edgar Cayce Institute, Atlantic University. And Henry is the creator of the Dream Helper ceremony. And so Henry has he's fabulous at dream interpretation. He's from the Edgar Cayce Institute. And so Henry created the ceremony, the Dream Helper ceremony, where we would dream for other people. And so we would, let's say, have a conversation on a Friday night, and then we would then pick a person's name, and then we would go program ourselves that we're going to dream. So now here's the thing again. People say, oh, I don't remember my dreams. I don't remember my dreams. Well, I actually teach dream interpretation, and people can remember their dreams. And we do have access to this. We just need to train ourselves. We need to tell ourselves again, tap into the consciousness. Anyway, we would dream for people, and then we would meet again the next morning and share the dreams that we had. And then Henry would help facilitate, but there are also people who can facilitate this. I can do this now also people that are trained. And then we would see how we were dreaming for other people, giving them vital, important messages for them. And it was just incredible, Chris. The results were amazing.
Wow. So when you say dreaming for other people, you're putting things into that person's dream, or are you seeing that person? Are they seeing you?
No, so for example, I'll give you an example. Let's say that you have a problem that you need to get solved, but you don't tell me what your problem is, all right? And you just say, hey, listen, I've got this really big problem. I need it to get solved. Can you dream for me tonight? So I'm, okay, fine. Then I go to sleep and I put a little piece of paper under my pillow and I say, dream for Chris. Now, whatever comes to me, I'll go to sleep and I'll have a dream. Then the next morning I'll call you and I say, Chris, I dreamt boom, 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 boom. You don't even have to be in it. And then you're going to say, OMG, Elly, you just answered the question. Now I know what to do.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that. So is that something you offer also on your website?
That's in my, yes, if you go to the Psi-Kids and you go to the Make Magic Happen, you're going to get into my school. And then there's a dream interpretation course available.
Oh, okay. All right. You can teach people.
It's a little embedded. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. I want to make the point clear too, that you're not just working with children. That's a big focus. You're a teacher, right?
Mm-hmm.
By trade, right? So you obviously love children, have children, that kind of thing, but you also work with adults. And
absolutely. And most of my work is really with adults and their children. So it's predominantly adults, because how else does one reach a child? You can't reach children unless you have parental support and parental participation.
Right. Of course. Of course.
Yeah. So, and everything.
Go ahead.
The things that I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you. And the things that I teach, I want the adults to have this knowledge first so that they can have the conversation with their children and then understand what's going on. Because, there's a wealth of information. When parents can understand and interpret dreams, they have such access to what's going on in their child's life, and they can really help their children on so many different levels through the dream world.
That makes a lot of sense. And a way of maybe even tapping into that subconscious, and subconscious is just this bigger person of ourselves, and we're almost like the puppet to it, the physical puppet, just for this consciousness realm that we understand, or seem to remember.
Right.
I mean, when you think about it, when you're dreaming, if you don't know you're dreaming, how is reality any different than when you're awake?
That's right.
Through the dream, and everything seems to work. And I was walking down the hall, and then I saw this person that waved hi, and a car almost hit me, and whatever it is, for all intents and purposes, when you're in that dream state, it's the same as your reality here. So there has to be some connection. Have you had the experience of meeting somebody in a dream, and then like the two of you being able to discuss it after?
Not that I can remember right now at this moment. In the dream helper ceremony, like to meet somebody that was then in the dream and then talk to them about it.
Right. I've heard of that phenomenon, kind of a shared dream, I guess.
Right. Oh no, the people. Oh, yes. I've had shared dreams also with my family, but not that we were together. We would be dreaming about the same people at the same time. Like we'd wake, and like example, my son, the one that has these abilities, like learned abilities, right? So I would say, hey, last night I had a dream about Chris and Kristen, and and then I started telling him the dream, and he's like, oh my God, they were in my dream also. And we were boom, boom, boom. Then we start comparing dreams, and we see that we were having very, very similar dreams with the same characters.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Same.
So you keep on the same wavelength for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is definitely fascinating. Let's see, we covered telekinesis, which I think is great. And I've only seen a couple of examples of that in real life. I feel like that's like a super skill. Aside of spoon bending, which is sort of like telekinesis as well, right? That's a little bit more common, but to see something actually move across a table or
something different,
very rare.
People who are interested in Robert Stone, he was a friend of Jose Silva. If you're familiar with the Silva mind control method, Jose Silva lived in he worked in the 1960s. He taught mind control. He was really very evolved for his time, and he taught psychic abilities, and he taught remote viewing and remote healing. And one of the things that one of Jose's teachers and people that he worked with was named Robert Stone. And Robert was really big into everything that had to do with the psychic realm, even telekinesis. So during COVID, right before COVID, I moved into an apartment complex, a very, pretty thing. It has a fountain it's got some fountains outside in front, and the water is going 24/7. And it was all very beautiful and aesthetic. And then once I got in, I realized that pounding of the water 24/7 was highly irritating to me, and it started to affect me. And so I said, I'm going to shut that fountain off. So I remembered that Robert Stone had spoken about what to do with telekinesis to turn off that fountain, basically, stop things from annoying us, use your magic. So I said, you know what? I'm going to turn off that fountain. I'm going to stop it. So I would stand in front of the window and I would rub some energy in my hands like that. And then I'd put my palm out facing the window like that. And I would tell it to stop. And I would do that. I'd spend about 10 minutes doing it. And then it still kept going. But I walked away, let it go, because that's part of the process too. Let it go. Let it do its thing. 2 hours later, I noticed that it was very quiet in my apartment. So I look out the window and the fountain is off. But all the other fountains are on. Just mine is off. Okay.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So then management came, they fixed it, and I did it again. And I kept doing it. And you know what finally happened? They came in and they disassembled all of the fountains. So there were no more fountains on this property.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
I told my family, I did this. And they were like, no, you didn't do it. I said, yeah, I did. I got rid of those fountains.
I believe you. It sounds like a lot like magic techniques that I'm familiar with.
Yes.
In the past, when people put like energy balls, when you say rubbing your hands together.
Yeah, for the energy.
On that, yeah. Like you can start to put that in your hands and you start to feel the presence and the heat of the other hand, and then it gradually widens and you kind of have this ball of energy. Mm-hmm. Related to that, I've heard of people using that to change like traffic lights. I've had some success with that too a long time ago, and I was thinking about these things, but I've kind of, I don't know, went on to other things, I suppose, might be in traffic and throw a ball of energy at a traffic light and change it.
Absolutely. That is telekinesis. Okay. And whether you want to call it telekinesis, it doesn't have to be an object moving or anything, but that is telekinesis. You're manipulating objects from a distance. And we can do this. We have the power to do this. That's why I love this work.
I've done that actually. I've actually done that with the jet truck. I used to call it oh my God. It was so loud.
The neighbor's truck.
So I had my son and I. Yeah. And I'm like, we did that. I said to my older sons, I'm like, it broke down.
It broke down and died. And it was like the loudest truck in the neighborhood. It was just so
and
loud.
I was so pissed off. And at night he would come home like 2:30 and want to wake us all up. I was so mad at him. So my little guy and I, we would do that. We would manifest that was going to happen. And it did. And then when he fixed the truck, 2 other times we did it again. And then I told my older sons and they're like, you didn't do that. I'm like, yes, I did. Yes, we did do that.
Yeah, you did. It doesn't matter if they believe you because you know that you did it.
Exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So this is a fascinating area of study. So where would you start if you were teaching this to somebody? And obviously don't want to teach the whole course here, but where would you get a person going with this? When you say rub your hands together, maybe
we do. I teach this also. It's and so that's exactly where I start. First, you pick your object, but see, there's got to be desire. If there's no desire, you just it doesn't really work. Like, well, it does as a matter, but they're mostly desire. I'm going to go circle back because I want to talk about the story about how myself and a few other people were turning off LED flashlights with only our mind also. So I want to circle back to that, but there has to be desire. So it's not like, I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to do this. I'm going to turn off the light like that because I can. There's got to be real desire and belief. And then you take your hands, you center yourself, you center that energy, you believe that you can, you rub your hands, and then you put that energy that comes in from your body. There's a real strong power. That energy that can lift the truck off of a person, that is that energy. When we know how to harness that energy because we want to, that is when that power comes out. That's when we can do this. So
of course, you're referring to like I'm sorry to interrupt you, but like a mother whose child is under a car and they go and they just have this miraculous strength and pick the car up.
That comes with adrenaline, right?
Yeah. So that kind of energy needs to get channeled. It has to be that really strong desire. It can't be weak energy. It's got to be real intense desire. Does that make sense? It's got
absolutely
an intention that's very, very strong.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So I have to share this story. So we had these LED flashlights, the small ones that you twist the top and then you could turn them on that way. So a friend of mine came over and she said to me, I turned on this flashlight with my mind and it's like, okay, well, if she can do it, I can do it. And I tried, it didn't work at that moment. So I said, well, if she can do it, I can do it. So then later on that night, took the flashlight and we turn it so that it's not completely tight, because once it's tight, you're not going to get it with your mind. That's not going to work. All right. But we have it so that it's loosely off. Mm-hmm. And then in the space of being loosely off, you put it somewhere. So I put it on my nightstand. And then I went into alpha and I said, light, you're going to go on. Light, you're going to go on. Well, I fell asleep while I was meditating on that light going on. And then I woke up when the light flashed in my eyes. And I was able to do that a few times. And then I get, okay, what's the point? All right. That's where I go with this. All right. So now what? So okay, let's do something really more important.
Well, you got to think this kind of power could have in groups,
could
could change elections, not to hit a hot topic there, or, other like larger things in the community, change a war. I've got the Ukraine flag up on the right for a reason, because we support Ukraine.
Yes.
So that building of energy and a psychic force perhaps could have an outcome on a bigger level.
So I use this work with one-on-one clients in my quantum leaping program. When there's something that they truly desire, I teach them how to do this. And they have, I can't reveal right now, it's too personal, but the things that they have revealed have been able to do. Example, one person was able to remove $300,000 worth of debt. And then it disappeared through an electronic glitch and it was no longer there. It was gone. Wow. And then another person was able to manifest a grant for $450,000, almost like out of thin air, which did not need to be repaid. Then I have other people manifesting in just incredible things that on a very deep personal level that anybody listening to this would say that's not possible. And that's okay, because it won't be possible for them. But for the clients that I work with, they've had these experiences and more. And it is about using the energy and being able to do that. It's always done positively. So it's always done for the highest good of all involved. And it's pretty amazing stuff.
It just sounds like it. It's fascinating. And I think it's wonderful and brilliant that you offer courses in this. We interviewed Dr. Joe Gallenberger about a year ago, and he talks about manifestation and use like heart energy.
Love.
It was something you hadn't thought of. Everybody always thinks about energy coming from the third eye, but there's other parts too of your body that can project that. And when you're saying you center yourself and you're bringing about this energy from like your whole body. Do you talk about things like chakra systems in your classes?
I talk about intuitive heart. So I do chakra cleansing, but I don't do that with the children. What I do with the children is we talk about, when I'm working one-on-one, I teach chakra cleansing, yes. But when I'm working with the kids, we connect with the heart. We do something called intuitive heart, which I also learned from Dr. Henry Reed. And that was his method. I believe he was prior to heart math. And so, again, connecting with heart coherence coming from the heart. So yes, we work there too.
I love that. And Joe, I know it was able to just have astronomical odds, or beat astronomical odds in a casino so many times that it was like ridiculous, like the numbers we were talking about. But he, was focused on his heart energy. And aside of talking to him, I know the heart also generates the most electricity in the body. Like it's an electrical focal point as well.
Mhm.
Can be measured.
Frequency, vibration.
I'm not sure if that plays a role in using that form of energy, but maybe it does.
For me, it's connected, okay, because it's all, I look at it like, I've never really, honestly, Chris, I've never really thought about where it all comes from, because I think it comes from, I call it the God force. And I believe that it's not coming just from me, like, oh, I'm a human being and so I believe that I'm tapping into what's called the God force. And then as the God force comes, it comes in, that energy comes into my body. And again, that is done with pure love. There's no malice. It is just white. Like if I have to use the word white light, it is just pure God force intention.
I love that. I love that. I love that. That's right into like all being connected. And it seems to be that love is that, one thing that connects us all.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that is the language in its simple terms that we need to do the manifestations that we want in our lives to bend a spoon.
Yeah.
Right. Anne-Marie, she just put up a comment.
Anne-Marie Young's a good friend of ours, and she says, I so love the show and believe and understand that vibrations and energy is how I live my life.
Yeah, beautiful. Right. And I always tell the children also when I work with the kids and the adults, right, that we have to look as within, so without, as above, so below. Okay, everything is a reflection of what's going on in here and in here. So we are not victim to anything, and that's a tough pill to swallow. So that when we look at how am I responsible for things, whether I'm thinking them and then causing and creating them. And so I teach that also. That's part of the emotional intelligence that I work on with children and consciousness.
Oh, that's really fascinating. And I love that. I
That's
think self-responsibility is just something that's lacking in so many people that continue to have the same problems because they're not really recognizing the problem as them.
Right. We hear it in our language, like just like, oh, what happened to me? You know what they did to me? Okay. So that language right there is we're victims. They did it to us. What happened? And there's no responsibility. Like, weren't we there? Like we were there. Right. So something happened. There's cause and effect, even if it's not direct. And then it's a real tough pill to swallow to look at, well, what was my role in that? Right. How? So
exactly. And when you talk about things like self-empowerment, I mean, I think the first step is to get to take responsibility for your own actions.
Absolutely.
Or at least look at what you're doing and stop playing the victim. And
and
maybe it isn't just your boss's fault. Maybe there's something you're doing at work that's wrong, that kind of thing. Oh, he yelled at me for being at the water cooler for the 34th time of the day.
Well,
yeah,
that's just some silly example, but people probably do this also on more lesser levels and don't realize that they're doing it.
I think a lot of people do it in their a lot of people, I'll answer that in a second. A lot of people do it unconsciously through the self-talk that they're doing. Oh, he's going to be mad at me. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. We have these self-talk conversations going on all the time. And those conversations then also give us our reality back.
And at that point, do you think that also contributes to having more psychic abilities? Being able to have telepathy and those other things? We're talking about self-empowerment from that angle, but do you think it also plays a role in adjusting one's subconscious or conscious mind and to be able to tune into?
Yeah, because you can remove story. So when you're removing a story, okay, like a story that we tell, a narrative, we're always telling ourselves stories like, oh, she doesn't like me. How do you know? Because she looked at me like that. We're making things up all the time. So when we realize that we're constantly interpreting things and making things up that may be real and may not be real, I always call it the what's so. Just let's stick to the details. Let's stick to the facts. What's so? Woman came into the room. She made a face. She grimaced. Okay, that's what's so. It does not mean that she doesn't like you. Maybe she had pain in her stomach. Okay,
exactly, or her back or something.
Right. So I teach that to the kids. I teach that to the adults. And then once we have that awareness, it's not about me. It's not, it's just what's so, then that will help us also to get into a deeper state of conscious awareness and into the psychic realm because the stories are gone.
Right, right. No, I totally agree with you. In fact, I used to have a friend, I haven't talked to her in a long time. She goes by a name Sussurus Cagliostro, and she used to say that a lot. She'd say, that's your story. It's not necessarily what can happen or what did happen, just a story.
It's a story.
Yeah. So, all right, a question in the audience there is Lisa asked, my best friend of 54 years took his own life. How can I continue to connect with him? Thank you.
Intention, quietly lie down, declare that you're going to connect with him, with your friend. Best time to do it is either before falling asleep at night when we're getting into a nice deep alpha, or early morning, or even wake yourself up in twilight around 3 to 5 a.m. And then with your eyes closed in that quiet space, just connect. And the thing, Lisa, is that you're with time, or maybe even the first time, you're going to get a message. And it's really important not to disbelieve that what you get is real.
Yeah, it's
Excellent.
The hypnagogic.
Exactly.
Hypnagogic, yeah. Magic states. That seems to be like kind of where that veil lies. That phenomena in paranormal research as well. That's where people start to see spirits and
Abductions,
out of body experiences. Exactly. Alien abduction phenomena often happens in that, or we're in trance-like states. We talked to Terry Lovelace, famous alien abductee, and I remember him talking about him riding his bike, and he's been kind of plagued with this alien abduction phenomena through his life.
Since he was a child.
Right. And riding a bike, and just like 6 hours later, he wakes up in a ditch. And I thought of like when I'm driving or commuting to work, and you just get in that kind of autopilot mode. I think might be close to that. Maybe you're close to the alpha state, and I'm not sure.
You get into like a trance, like you were saying.
Yeah.
All right, you're going on like a 2-hour commute, and it just goes by like this because you've been in a trance.
Yes.
Like, where did that time go?
Right.
Exactly.
Lisa says thank you. So yeah, we appreciate that.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you for asking. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's really cool. It looks like you really teach people a lot of different subjects here, but they're all somewhat related and very empowering.
Yeah, I was going to say thank you. They're all connected, and it is all about responsibility and self-empowerment, and then accessing the other frequencies, the other realms, the other dimensions, and trusting. It's about trusting the process also, and knowing that we all can do this. So, and I just want to share with people also, this has come up a lot recently. When people think that just because, all right, let me get the right words on this. People think that if they're not an empath, or they're not empathic, that then they can't be psychic. And that's not true. You don't need to be an empath or anything. Sometimes even being an empath can interfere with the ability to be psychic, like the ability to really get clear messages, because you're so connected to the feelings of the other person that it may get in the way of the actual psychic message. Does that make sense? Like,
yes, it does.
Sure does. Yeah.
So
elaborate.
People who have this misconception, oh, I'm not an empath, I'm not empathetic, so it's going to be hard for me to communicate with other realms. No, that's not true at all. It's not. It's going to be really easy once you set the intention and do the work.
Definitely makes sense.
I love that. And all these processes of developing those psi abilities create compassionate young people with high levels of self-esteem, or older adults, right? Confidence, compassion.
Absolutely. So here's what I've noticed in doing this work when I'm with the children, and we talk about breaking up the meaning. I call it the meaning making machines. All right, because we all make meaning to everything. And so once the kids learn that they're responsible for their thoughts, they're responsible for the things that they're making something mean, then we can clean it up in the classroom really fast. This is back when I used to be in the classroom. No, now I'm no longer in the classroom. But I still work with teens and children one-on-one. In some cases, I don't do a lot of one-on-one, so it's very, very specific. And we break through all of these stories that they have so that they can achieve the goals. The kids that I'm working with right now, these are teens that know what they want. And so then the problems that they face, of course, are doubt and peer pressure and self-talk. So we work through, those are some of the things that we work through. And at the same time, we work in the quantum field so that they learn how to manipulate the energy and they learn how to, I call it part the seas. And I do this with adults also, teach people how to part the seas, part the quantum field, so that what you say becomes from your words, from your mouth to God's ears, okay, part the seas.
Do you feel that it's better working one-on-one than within a group?
This is a personal thing, and again, a personality thing. I personally enjoy one-on-one, but I'm a relator. So for me, I need to relate. I need to go deep with a person. Other people are really great working with large crowds. And so whatever the person who's facilitating, whatever their style is, Kristen, that is the best for them. Now, I'm not, like I look at John Edwards, and we used to work at the same psychic fair together back in the day. And John, I don't know him personally, but we just worked at the same fair. And John, if you look at him on TV, right, you see he can work a really big crowd.
Yeah.
That's great for him. That's not my I don't know what I would do if I was standing in there with a really big crowd in front of me like that. All right, that would not be my comfort zone or beyond. That would definitely not be my strength.
Understandable. I'm like that. I would rather teach one-on-one. You give more, I believe,
Or learn.
yourself and learn. Yeah.
But then some people enjoy working with groups, okay, group coaching, group programs. And it's not about, people often think, oh, group programs are, if you have a group program, you can put more people in, you can get more money, yada, yada, blah, blah. But I don't, it's not about that. It's really about your personality. If you're a group person, group programs are great.
Tony Robbins.
Dynamic in a group also, it has its advantages.
Yes.
Only a person who's facilitating needs to know their own strengths.
All right, your own strengths and weaknesses. And like I mentioned, Tony Robbins that you mentioned earlier, would be a good example of somebody who is good with groups, right? He works like incredibly large groups.
Yes.
And
Chris, 7,000, I believe he's up to 7,000 now.
Wow. Yeah, I've always thought of him as being a little bit magical because, he talks about just normal empowering things, but, there's sort of a manifestation angle there too. That's fascinating. So your first childhood experience, as you mentioned, speaking of John Edwards, was communicating with spirit and seeing a spirit. Do you still see spirits? And do you feel like you are like directly connecting with someone's grandmother? Do you see them in your mind's eye? Do you see them physically? Maybe we could talk a little bit about mediumship.
So like I'm laughing because I'm like a skeptic. All right. So when I'm home and I see something, I just keep I say to myself, oh, those are my glasses reflecting the light. Okay?
That sounds like
that's what I tell myself. When I'm doing a reading and I don't do medium work unless it comes through. Like I was just doing a reading the other day and somebody's relative came through. And so then I'll say, okay, this is, I'll let people know this is not my thing. I don't normally, do medium work, but if things come through, I will share what comes through. And I've done readings where aliens have come through. And again, I learn later that the person, I'm not front loaded. What that means is I know nothing about my client. All right. When I do a reading, I know nothing other than their name. And if they want their astrology, I know their birth information, but that is all that I know about a client. And so I don't know if a client is into aliens or into Catholicism or Judaism. I don't know what their background is or anything like that. So when I'm doing a reading, I just speak what shows up. And I've seen aliens, I've seen Jesus, I've seen Mary, and it's like, I've seen them. Yeah. And it's what gets shown to me during the reading.
This is fascinating.
What
Okay.
did the alien look like? I'm so sorry. I'm just curious.
So the aliens that I saw were white and blue. And this is interesting for me because they told me to tell the client. And so I started using this afterwards. She was sick. And these entities told me to tell the client to take white light and blue cobalt and mix it together, like merge it together as an elixir and run it through her body to heal her body, and to start at the top and run it like through all of the body as if you were giving a blood transfusion, and to do that all as often as possible. And so I said to myself, I conveyed that to her, and then I said, that sounds really cool. And next time I get sick or I'm not feeling well, I'm going to do that too.
Myself.
Right. Yeah. It seems like that would be hard to put together, but it sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
There they are. So do you see them like in your mind's eye when these things do happen?
I see them
They're
in my
not just walking into your room with you,
no, it's
standing there.
It's all in here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Nano, and that kind of thing. And I don't mean to sound skeptical when I say that, because I totally believe in.
Oh, no, they're not here in the physical form. That was when I was a child. Okay, when I was a child, I would see beings in the physical form, not aliens, but entities. But I don't see them anymore. I've seen shadow figures in form, yes, but that's it. That's all.
And can I just on a side note about the shadow figures? Are they always negative in your experience, or are there positive ones?
The times that the shadow figures have appeared to me have been times where there's some sort of distress going on. Yeah. So it wasn't oh, this is a real great experience now that you're here, dude. No, it wasn't that at all.
Yeah, I've heard people talk about them as like a spirit trying to materialize and just fully can't, being a shadow, yet they're always associated, almost always associated in the paranormal realm as being these kind of negative beings.
Yeah, that's what I felt. It really felt that way, Chris. The few times that they came, it was like this wasn't pleasant. It wasn't pleasant.
Oh, fascinating. I love the aliens and Jesus. And so that also brings up another idea. So when you say Jesus is coming through, is it that person's perception of Jesus? Is there something stepping into a role of Jesus?
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, it's a fair answer, because I want you know this.
I don't know. Because then when I will tell them, then this is what I'm seeing. And, and I'll say, this is like, okay, I'm not filtering. I'm just letting you know that I'm seeing Jesus or I'm seeing Mary. And then it turns out that they have a deep connection to Jesus or they have a deep connection to Mary. So is that my question to myself? Is that why it's appearing? Is that I don't have an answer.
Wow.
Does the communications come across to you in the form of like symbols, in pictures and that sort of thing, almost not really in a language?
No, it comes in, I hear words, I see, and then I feel. And so one of the things that I've noticed is that when the tinglings go through my legs, especially into my right leg, that means that I am I'm 100% spot on. And I know that this is so. Like that is like my entire body knows this is.
Right leg. Always the right leg?
Always the right leg.
Oh, that's fascinating. See, so like we've talked to people about clairaudience, right, as a common phenomenon. They'll talk about, well, if it's in one ear, it means, it's positive. It's in the other ear, maybe it's a negative thing, or, it's funny how it's broken down that way and can change between individuals. Like there's no hard, fast rule. It's almost like your own interpretation of whatever that data is that you're receiving.
Right, exactly. And then I'll feel things and I'll see things. And then the seeing is always in my imagination. That's why I like to do it in the dark, because then I can just see it. And then I feel things and then I can hear things also.
Yeah, we've had clairaudient experiences, which are very interesting. We've had them even together on investigations. Not to dwell on ourselves, when I've had a mediumistic like and I'm not good at this. I don't call myself a medium, but I've had that kind of communication with, say, family members. It was always about like a lot of symbols, and I would even see words in my mind's eye. It felt like a stream of information, just felt very outside myself, but there it all was in my mind's eye. So I was wondering if it was similar for you.
Probably all inside. It's all inside.
That's fascinating.
I know everybody's different, so that's why we always ask.
Yeah. Everybody has these different experiences when they're getting this information. So, and that's why it's really important for us not to compare ourselves to other people also.
Exactly. We just like talking about it because it's so like I keep saying, we're very unique, people. So everybody's different. Every individual is different. And we like to hear how you have your experience, how Chris has his, how, and everybody has theirs. It's neat to hear.
Right. It really is, and I just remember back when I did work, there was a time I worked for the psychic fair out on Long Island. And
oh, wow.
So everybody had their own way to do things. Some people would do psychometry. And I even taught psychometry also. That's not exactly my thing, but if it works again. So people would do pendulums and psychometry and tarot cards. And back in the day, I was doing coffee readings and with coffee grinds, because that's who I learned from, a Israeli Moroccan seer. And she used coffee grinds, and she taught me she taught me a lot. And so I guess I was her apprentice back then. So drink a lot of coffee, look at the grinds, and then start reading the grinds. And then later on, one of my friends said to me, "You don't need to be doing it that way. That's just your crutch. You don't need to use coffee beans or grinds to do a reading. You could do it without." So
it's a tool.
That's amazing.
It's funny you mentioned that. We talked to Robert Lindsay Milne recently. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but he's a psychic, kind of from the gut psychic. But he started as a little kid working in tea rooms in Canada. But he always said he never read the tea leaves. It was just a requirement to work in the psychic establishment because they had different set up. So I always just read the person. And we've had other people, Anne-Marie Young in our audience, we were talking about tarot cards. Said they were more a tool for the person that she was reading, so they could see it.
Yeah, makes sense. Also,
people are very into the meanings of the cards, and there's a whole art to that too. So it just depends on the person, right?
Yeah. Oh, I love tarot. Absolutely love it. It's just fabulous. I don't know much about it. I just like looking at the cards, and I have had experiences with, it was real interesting because I didn't even really know who she was. I had this experience with Madame Lenormand, who turned out, I don't know if you know her, she was the French fortune teller for Napoleon and Josephine, his wife, and Robespierre, and a lot of kings and queens during that time, and the aristocrats. And she lived in Paris. She was even imprisoned. She started off as in a Catholic school or something like that, and then they kicked her out. She ran away, and she became known as the Parisian Sibyl. So she's just got this fascinating story. And I had a real crazy personal experience. I didn't even know this woman existed until it came through in a dream. And then I started to research the stuff that was in the dream, and it led me to Madame Lenormand. And then the stories just kept coming. They were incredible. And I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to honor this woman. And so it just happened to turn out that when all of this was going on, it was shortly before her birthday. So I wrote a blog and I put it in my newsletter. I wrote a blog honoring her, and I honor her every single year now. Last year I did a salon. I was invited to do some atelier salon, and the conversation was all about Madame Lenormand. And this year about Madame Lenormand, I have my own podcast also. It's a live show. And I have Mary Greer, who is a tarot reader and one of the people who knows probably the most about Madame Lenormand. And so she'll be my guest for Madame Lenormand's birthday. And we'll be talking about that and the tarot.
Fascinating. Well, I'm glad we hit on that subject.
Yeah.
When is your podcast on, and how can people watch that?
Oh, so I do a live podcast every Wednesday, 10 o'clock Eastern time, and it's on Podbean. And all they have to do is get the Podbean app and then call in and ask their questions or listen to the guests. So it's always, yeah.
That's great. Hey, all right, the Podbean app, I'm sure, is free. Are there other podcasting platforms like Spreaker and other ones?
Well, I'm on.
It just has like the Apple Podcast. Can they go in and listen?
Oh, so for the live call, you have to be on Podbean, which is, it's free for the user. And so for the live call, you just get on Podbean on the app. But then I have everything it goes on to all the other major platforms. I'm on Apple, iHeartRadio, Spotify, yada, yada, YouTube, the whole thing.
Yeah, there's a lot. Amazon.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating. That's great. I didn't realize you did that.
No.
So
what's the name of it again, please?
Oh, Ask Elly.
Oh.
Ask Elly, Intuitive Insights. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's wonderful.
That's great. Well, you'll probably get a question from us. I'm going to look into that.
Yeah.
I think that's fascinating. I love podcasts, and I'm a little bit of a podcast junkie at times. I get on kicks. I know there was one comment out there from Laura, and she was talking about painting, and she went on some other things. I'm not putting that up just yet, but it did trigger one last question I wanted to ask you, and that was about creativity and the role of creativity, psychic ability, and well-being. Do you see a difference in creative people versus non-creative people, or is it something you try to encourage in people to help their psychic experience?
Oh, so just in general, I encourage everyone to do something creative. All right. So whatever that looks like, because when we're going into creative work, we're tapping into the alpha state. And that, again, allows us then to get into the psychic realm. So no matter what your modality is, just whether you're doing something creative on a computer or you're creatively building something, even if it's total technology or art, painting, music, whatever that creativity is, when you tap into that, you get into flow. And then once you're in flow, you're in alpha anyway.
I love that. And I totally believe you. I'm also kind of used to be a musician in not a real past life, but earlier in my life, but more of a musician. And I do the music that's on the show and stuff. And it would be times I would get into just such a zone. And you say, well, where did that come from? It would make me wonder about the nature of inspiration. I was like, did I make this little bit of music, or did it come from the other side, if you will, beyond the veil? And painters talk about that. They're like, Tori Amos, who we love,
fairies,
said fairies wrote all our music.
Oh, that's beautiful. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even Paul McCartney has said things like that.
The muse, we tap into that inspiration, absolutely, and then it starts to flow through us. When we're in flow, in that flow state, we lose track of time. You know that, and there is no time, and that is where you just look at the clock and you've been playing music for 2 hours, or you've been writing or painting or whatever it is that you're doing, and hours can have gone by. You're in flow. Mm-hmm.
Right, resonating.
That's awesome, and thank you for your comment, Laura. That was related to that. She was talking about painting and going into it. So that's great.
This has been a wonderful podcast.
This has been so much fun and so informative. I know our audience liked it, and I love it. And I think there's just so much information in here for people to digest. The podcast is called Ask Elly. Your website is www.ellymolina.com. And people need to go seek you out.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Yeah, well, on our website.
Which is nice. Oh, yeah. And let's talk about your books real fast, because we got a few minutes. You have books there, and maybe just real quick about what they're about.
Okay, so thank you. So let's start with Children Who Know How to Know. That's an Amazon bestseller. It is a resource guide for adults to work with themselves, the inner child, or children, anybody who wants to develop their psychic abilities, their intuitive abilities. It is a practical guide. It's easy to read. It's quick, and it's really, it's got rave reviews. So that's not me speaking. It was channeled, if you want, so to speak. All right. Sometimes I look at it and say, did I write that? I don't know. And so that's the first book. And then I have Annabelle and the Domino, which is a picture book, an illustrated children's book. And that was the story of the young girl. changed it around, obviously, but it was loosely based on a true account of a young girl moving a domino with her mind. And then with Betsy Chassie Dancing in the Unknown. Betsy Chassie is the creator of one of the creators of What the Bleep. You know, many people are familiar with that. So Betsy, remember that movie, What the Bleep? Do you know?
I don't
Yeah.
remember the
Vaguely
movie.
remember the title, but
Yeah.
maybe you could tell.
And that was like 2004. So with Betsy and a few other people, we put together a book of stories, and I have a story in there. And my books are available in the resource section of my website. And then I have the podcast and I have my online programs, which is, again, the Make Magic Happen, which is the adult child psychic development program. And then I have a dream interpretation course. And then I have a free course available also on emotional alchemy. And this is all accessible once you get into my website and you go into the Psi-Kids and you start going into there. It's all there on the resource section.
I saw a quote on there from you of just paraphrase, but you said, "Be your own alchemist," and I love that.
Yes.
So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And did you say you channeled the book "Children Who Know Who"?
I was kind of joking around that. Okay.
What a segue that was!
Well, no, technically, it took me quite a few years to write that because the science kept changing on me. So what I knew to be true, there was no science. And so then I would wait, and then science would catch up, and I was like, okay, I can use that. Then I would wait, and then science would catch up. So finally, I just like let it flow. I wrote it, and it went to publishing. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Wonderful.
Well, this has been a fantastic
Yes. Thank
talk.
you.
Stay with us online. I'm going to just close up the show and we'll chat a little bit. It was great to talk to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
We look forward to doing this again. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And that's all the time we have this week for Bigfoot and the Bunny. We'll be back next Thursday with a Dark Horse Paranormal podcast. And of course, Saturday we'll bring back another Bigfoot and the Bunny. So we hope you guys have a great week.
Thank you to our listeners.
Thank you
Thank
to
you,
all
Anne-Marie.
our listeners. Thank you, Laura, for the
Yeah.
comments. Don't worry about
Debbie.
talking too much. We don't mind. Anne-Marie, everybody that was out there today.
Laura, Sandy,
Laura, Sandy, Lisa, everyone. Thank you. Without you guys, we
and
wouldn't have a
Courtney
show.
Peterson. I think she was on as well earlier. So
We appreciate it. We'll see you soon. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
bye-bye.